What's going on, everyone? It's the Mouth from the South here today to talk to your faces about the notorious Conor McGregor. Now, I've been a fan of fighting, whether it's boxing, MMA, whatever. I've been a fan of it for years, and I remember when Storytime. I was a huge fan, and still am, a big fan of WWE. And I remember a few years ago when I had stopped watching it, I think this is like 5 years ago. I had stopped watching it for a while, but then I just started to get back into it. I think it was around the time Daniel Bryan was starting to make his rise in WWE. And I started to get back into it. And I heard about this loudmouth Irishman from the UFC who's throwing shots at WWE wrestlers. So I was kind of like, alright, if you're so tough, let's have a look. So I just went onto YouTube, typed in Conor McGregor, and I found it was a montage of his most savage press conference moments, that sort of shit. And from then on, just from the way he presented himself and the way he ran his mouth and backed it up, I was hooked. Ever since then, I've been a massive McGregor fan, if you can't tell by the top, the hat, and the fact that I've got a signed picture of him up on my fucking wall. He was the man who got me further into fighting, who made me actually want to fight. I remember when McGregor Mayweather was actually announced, and I wanted to be involved in it so much. I remember watching the live stream. I remember not going to see my girlfriend at the time. She was ill and she wanted to see me, but I was like, nah, bum that off. Man's got to stay and watch the Mayweather McGregor press conference. I'm a shit cunt, I know, fuck it. And I remember watching it and genuinely taking pictures of my TV with my phone, because I was like, this is a historic moment. UFC or MMA and boxing finally meet, the two biggest names in both, and they're colliding. It was gonna be fucking nuts. And I remember buying all the different t-shirts. I remember putting bets on McGregor to win. I was having arguments with family, and all my faith was in McGregor. Looking back, very stupid decision. And that's the thing about McGregor. He makes you believe the hype. You say Conor McGregor versus arguably one of the best boxers of all time. In some people's minds, Mayweather is the greatest of all time. Not so sure about that. But he is one of the best ever. And you stick him against a guy who's never had a professional boxing fight ever. And you're like, nah, he doesn't stand a chance. Why would he? Look at the guys that Mayweather's defeated, and Mayweather's never even fought professionally in a boxing ring before. Not professionally. But then McGregor starts to run his mouth. And he starts to say shit and plant things in your mind that make you think, okay, maybe you can do it. And then when he's on stage and he has that presence and that confidence and the way he's strutting about, he owns this shit. He's in Mayweather's face, screaming at him. And you're just believing, he's got this. He just does. He's going to go in there and do what he says he's going to do. He's going to go in there and knock him out. Maybe it takes someone who's not a boxer to put down one of the greatest boxers to ever live. Obviously, didn't happen. But that's what McGregor made us believe. And that's what he's made us believe in the UFC for a long time. Even back before he was in the UFC. The motherfucker breaks records. One bout in Cage Warriors wasn't good enough, so he had to get two. Going to the UFC wasn't good enough. He wanted to be a champion. That wasn't good enough. He had to knock out the champion in 13 seconds. An undefeated champion for 10 years. A guy who was feared by everyone else on the UFC roster. And McGregor stood in his face, showed no fear, no mercy, and put him down with a single left hand in 13 seconds. That's not good enough for McGregor. He'll take on anyone and everyone. So if he takes on Nate Diaz, he takes on Nate Diaz. He lost because he underestimated him. That is something I strongly believe is one of Conor's his biggest weakness. I can speak properly, I promise. He underestimates his opponent sometimes. Sometimes, when he gets on top of the world, he thinks, I'm Conor McGregor. I can do whatever the fuck I want. And he does have that aura about him. And he does do that, and he does seem untouchable. But when you yourself wake up in the morning and think, no one can touch me, no one can fuck with me, you're not training as hard as you should. You're not analysing your opponent as much as you should. And that ends up going majorly against you in the fight. So look what happened against Nate Diaz. He was flat-footed, wasn't using his head movement as much as he should have, wasn't ready for Nate to be able to weather the storm. And in the end, Conor got caught, he got gassed, and he ended up shooting against Nate Diaz, which is something you don't want to do. The motherfucker's an anaconda and he will tie you up like no tomorrow. And that's exactly what happened. But Conor took that. He took it on the chin. He was like, okay, I'm not untouchable. I'm not, the be-all and end-all of everything. He went away, took the loss like a champ. He didn't do like a Ronda Rousey thing and hide his face as he's leaving the arena. And if you watch his documentary, he sat in his locker room after the fight, and no matter how many people were saying to him, around him, are going, oh, it was a lucky punch, I will get him next time or something. Conor wasn't making excuses. He was just like, I lost. He was the better man. I take this on the chin and I'll be back. And he was. He came back the second time a better man and a better fighter. He analysed the fuck out of Diaz. He knew what he had to do. He was quicker with his hands. He was better with his head movement. He wasn't shooting. And also, he managed to gain a second wind towards the end of the fight, which, in my opinion, is what made is what solidified that win for me. The fact he didn't get completely gassed out and just flop. He weathered the storm that Diaz put on him, and he came back and he kept going forward. He not once gave up. And that was good to see. And then I went on to be Alvarez, and 2-division champ, went on to Mayweather, and lasted, I think it was 11 rounds. And I think if McGregor didn't gas himself out in the first 4 rounds trying to knock Floyd out, he could have gone the distance, and he quite possibly, if he went for the long game and just focused on trying to land against Floyd, because Conor did land, which is, a triumph in itself against Mayweather. Not many boxers can land clean on Mayweather, and he did a couple times. And obviously, the shots Mayweather threw, they weren't affecting McGregor. The fucker's got a chin. You got to give him that. But yeah, that was partly Conor just going, I'm Conor McGregor, I can do what I want. But take the loss on the chin. He's then flying on top of the world. He's got more money than he's ever thought he could have. And he's making the most of it. He's taking brand deals left, right and centre. He's doing adverts. He's got his whiskey thing going on. He's doing bits for himself, but not as a fighter now. More as, some would say, an entrepreneur. I guess so. Starting your own business, investing in other businesses, keeping the money rolling in without having to go to war and, you know, put your health and safety on the line. But then Khabib went after Artem Lobov. And I remember waking up and seeing the news that Conor McGregor was being hunted down by police. And I went and watched the video. And I remember putting a tweet or something out saying, get you a friend that will fly halfway across the world for you. Because that's what that was. That wasn't, oh, I'm Conor McGregor, I can do what I want. That was Conor sticking up for his friend. For someone who he cared about. You know, it's his sparring partner and a good friend of Conor's. And I think it's fair enough to say, like, if I'm seeing my mate be cornered by a load of guys, or anyone really, being cornered by a load of guys and being slapped about, I'm not having it. You know, you stand up for the fucker. And that's exactly what Conor did. Khabib stayed on the bus, and, you know, Conor did injure other fighters, which, you know, he's paid for. But then came the actual Khabib fight. Conor underestimated him, well and truly. He was focusing too much on his ground game and how to defend, and these are his words, not his. His words, not mine. Professional YouTuber. Conor said that he focused too much on his ground game. He'd lost a lot of his stand-up ability and wasn't able to be the Conor that we normally saw. And it was evident in the fight. Conor looked big. Like, he was beefy, if you know what I mean. Like, he wasn't this skinny, ripped McGregor. Like, obviously, he's always ripped. But there was a lot of muscle mass he had weighing down his body. And he walked out flat-footed against Khabib. He wasn't on his toes, you know, jumping in and out. His head movement wasn't the same. It was a McGregor who thought he could walk in there and walk through Khabib. And it ended up going completely the other way. And Khabib ended up walking through Conor. And then all the shit that happened after was disgraceful on Khabib and his team's part. And the fact he tried to defend himself for that, I thought was disgusting and disgraceful. But, and I know I'm going to get called a McGregor fanboy, but fuck it, I don't care. I'm a fan of the UFC, and if Conor had did that, if Conor had won the fight, then jumped over the cage and started trying to wail on Khabib's team, I'd be saying that was disgusting on Conor's part, well and truly. Like, for some reason, embarrassing Conor, because that's what happened. Khabib embarrassed Conor. That wasn't enough. He had to go that step further. But we're not here to talk about Khabib and his stupid actions after the fight. We're here to talk about McGregor. Ever since that loss, it's been hard to be a fan of McGregor. Claims that he's cheated on his wife. Claims that he's got an illegitimate son. Punching an old man in a bar. Smashing a fan's iPhone outside a club. We're back to seeing a McGregor who thinks he's untouchable and can do what he wants. But not in a good sense. He's not a UFC fighter anymore. He's a celebrity who does dumb shit. That's what's happened to McGregor. And it's very, very hard to be a fan of this McGregor at the moment. Especially when he keeps going, I'm retired. Okay, I'm not retired. I want this fight. No, maybe not. Okay, I'm going to step in here. Because I want to get back in the ring. Oh no, maybe not. The UFC didn't offer me enough money. Okay, I'm calling up this person. I'm starting beef with this person. I'm fighting again now. I'm back in Ireland doing charity boxing events. There's so much in the air all the time with McGregor Like, all the allegations he's faced, he's not really spoken up about, except from hitting the old man in the bar, which he apologised for, but it wasn't that great of an apology, because he was still, it seemed like he was trying to bury what happened, instead of going, I admitted it, I was wrong, I hit the old man in the bar, it's bang out of order of me. Instead, he was like, oh, it doesn't matter what happened. And I try not to think about too much about what happened, you know. I'm just sorry to him, and he should have been able to enjoy his time at the bar. You know, that's not the apology we want. We want you to come out and go, hold my hands up, I was wrong, I was bang out of order. You know, this happened, I did it because of this, I shouldn't have done it in the first place, da 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 da. That simple. But he didn't do that, and his apology was a bit weak. And with everything else that's coming out, as I said, it's been very, very hard to be a McGregor fan. And it's hard to be in his corner. But he keeps talking all the time. And this is one of the things that Conor does best. He is a fucking amazing talker. And he knows how to build hype around himself. Look at the hype he built around his whiskey. Whilst building hype for the Khabib fight, he was still on this stage. Proper 12! Irish whiskey! You know, he was selling that shit. Like, that, the motherfucker knows how to build hype. And he knows how to sell shit. Whether it's a fight, or whiskey, or fucking Burger King on a private jet. He knows how to sell himself and what he's being involved in. And now he's claiming that he's fighting in January. Not sure who yet. There's been claims that he wants to fight Khabib again, which we'll see. I don't know how much. I think Conor should fight Khabib again. Not straight away. Conor's been away for far too long, and he needs time to get back into things and find his feet in MMA again, because he's been gone a long while. This isn't the McGregor that was constantly fighting, that when a fighter pulled out, he was going, okay, well, who else we got? It's not that McGregor we've got at the moment. And if he wants to get back into fighting, and he wants to claim his belts back, or he wants to be seen as the Don of UFC like he fucking was, then he needs to start laying the foundations again and start as if you're building from the ground up again. And I think heading straight for the baddest motherfucker title, not a good idea. Heading straight for Khabib, not a good idea. You need to start, not necessarily low, but you need to start with a few fights to get back into things. You don't need to be the top dog all the time. And you can't be the top dog when you've been away for so fucking long. I reckon getting in there with someone like Darren Till wouldn't be a bad shot. Even Cowboy Cerrone. That would be a fucking amazing fight. And those are two fighters that bring the best out of their opponents. And those two, there'd be no remorse. They would be going for each other. You know that would be a fuck of a fight. Like, that would be hard hitting throughout. It's undoubtable that we'd see blood in that fight. It'd be a fucking sick fight to make. But Conor is still running his mouth on Twitter. Like, after Masvidal beat Diaz, Conor took to Twitter and was saying that the cut men and the doctors should have done a better job on Diaz's eye, and that we were robbed of what was an amazing fight. I'm just kind of sick of hearing McGregor talk. As good of a talker as McGregor is, he needs to stop talking as much and put his words into action, sorry. He needs to get back in the octagon. if you want to fight, fucking fight. Don't keep talking about doing it. Just fucking do it. I'm fed up of seeing Conor McGregor's done this, Conor McGregor's done that, allegations against McGregor for this, McGregor's tweeted this. Fuck that. I want to see McGregor TKO against this person. I want to see McGregor back in the octagon doing what he does best. Building hype and putting fuckers on their ass. And, you know, he needs... If you're done with UFC, say so. Don't keep building and building hype and getting fans excited and intrigued if it leads to nothing. Because at the moment, McGregor's just been blue balls in us for a very long time. And I think a lot of fans are starting to get a bit fucking sick of it, especially with everything else bad that's coming out about McGregor. So, if you're gonna fight, please fucking do it. And if you're gonna fight, do it fucking right. Pick the right opponent. Don't go straight for the top seat, because you've been away too long to try and come back and reclaim your throne. You have to work from the ground up again. Pick the right opponents. Pick the right fights. Build hype for the fights and actually start winning again. It's been too long since McGregor's won a fucking fight. And, you know, with him getting back into UFC, back into training, having something to keep his mind on, maybe he won't be sleeping with other women, allegedly. Maybe he won't be fathering other people's sons, allegedly. Maybe he won't start, you know, he won't be hitting old men in bars. That one's not allegedly. Having that focus and that drive and that determination is such a distraction from everything else that his name will stop being run through the mud. So if you're going to fight Conor, please actually fight and do it fucking right. Anyways, I know the McGregor fanboy comments are coming. I know there's also McGregor fanboys who are going to hate on me because I said something wrong about the Perfect Irishman. But, fuck it. I'm a huge McGregor fan. I can see his flaws. I want to see the motherfucker back in the octagon and putting bitches on their ass. That's all I want to see. Quick prediction. I would really like to see, in regards to Khabib versus Ferguson, I would really like to see Ferguson win. Anyways, that's the end of me for the day. I'll stop running my mouth like McGregor. Hope you guys have a sick day. Please like, share, subscribe, all of that good shit, you know. And I'm out. Peace!